Alrighty, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sound Test Room US. Today we are taking a look at MIDI Designer Pro, and strap yourselves in for a long one here, folks, because this is a very, very deep app. Um, there's so much functionality underneath the hood here that I couldn't even begin to cover it in a single video. So I'm just gonna show you one user's perspective. This is how I use the app and the functions that I find necessary. Almost all of it entails virtual MIDI here, just for using it on a single device, or I like to use this with two iPads together all the time. But yeah, so in any case, let's launch it, and we'll see it looks for our connections right away there, and we have a new template. So it asks us if we want to see a tutorial. We do not, but when you first get the app, you might want to, so you could do that right away. And if you say no, it says to add 3 controls in order to avoid watching the tutorial. So we're not going to worry about that necessarily, because we'll get to adding those. But let's go ahead and get Animoog going right away. And when we jump to the setup screen, we can see that MIDI Designer is already highlighted. It had already found it. Sometimes it's not, but just make sure that it is there. And our channel is set to 1. That's good. You could use Omni if you want. Set it to 1 through 16, whatever. But we're going to stick with channel 1. And now let's pop back over to MIDI Designer and check our config under More. And this is where we can see our connections. So this is our Wi-Fi connections. This is actually hooked up to my PC right now, which is running Ableton, and Animoog here, which is obviously on the device. So these are our virtual destinations. If we had, a piece of hardware set up, if I was using my OP12 or something, we'd see that listed here. Another iPad, it would find that up here in our Wi-Fi connections. So yeah, so connections look good. Let's go back to More, and instead of config, we'll go to Design. And this is where we can start adding in our controls and the functions that we're really after here. So we have buttons, knobs, sliders, crossfaders, and XY pads. And these are our MIDI controls. These things send data. And then we also have labels, shapes, and panels. And these things are all cosmetic. So these controls are just to make your layout look good, make it how you like it. And then our first 5 here are what we're going to use in order to map to Animoog and stuff like that. So let's add one of everything. We can add a button, and resize it as we like here using the circles. We can add a knob. Sometimes it gives you these little prompts every now and then when you first start it up. But we'll add a knob, resize that. Let's add a slider. A crossfader is just a horizontal slider, and an XY pad down here. And we'll resize that too. So these 3 are actually all essentially the same thing. They're all sending out, data 0 to a 127 has a default. They really all do the same thing. They just kind of look a little bit different here. So no matter which one I pick right now, we can do the same thing with the other 2. So let's map some stuff in Animoog. So we'll go to Design, and let's do a button real quick. We can see our subtype is defaulted to toggle, which means that it's an on-off switch. There's like 12 different things that it could be. Momentary is sort of a press and release kind of action. It could be a drum pad, all this other stuff, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But it defaults to toggle, which is cool. We'll run with that right now. And when we go to MIDI over here, we can see that our channel is set to 1-1. So we know that we're on channel 1 inside of Animoog, so that's good. Say we were on channel 2, we could adjust that here in the left-hand column. And then 0 to 127 here is what CC we want to map to. So it found, it just picked 1-1, has the randomness to it. So whenever you make a new control, it just randomly assigns something. So we'll run with that. So 1-1 is fine for us. We can see it has these other like pan pot, expression, all this stuff. And these are essentially just like MIDI industry standards, I suppose you could say. And this way, when you have like a hardware controller that you're trying to work with, a lot of times hardware will default to these and things like that. So these mappings will definitely come in handy in some cases, but when we're just working with virtual MIDI, we can really assign it however we feel. So 1-1 is cool. We'll run with that. And now let's pop over to Animoog here. And when we go to map CCs, we're going to work with our filter here, which we can see is already mapped to 1. We can double tap and set that to whatever number we feel like. 1 is what we want though. So let's turn off map CCs. So this is a toggle. So what that means is our MIDI on off is 0 to 127. We could set that to whatever we like, but it's going to work right now as is. So we'll apply that. And now 0 is just basically means that it's sending the min and the max. So when we exit out here, turning this on is sending the maximum, which will be our high pass over here. And you can see it moved. So now we'll move this to low pass by turning this off, and now it's sending the minimum. I don't know why I went to design there. And now we can see that it's at low pass. So, this toggle switch is already working for us, just setting between low pass and high pass. So just like that, we can get a toggle switch going. But we are, that knob had 3 functions on it. So let's use this knob instead and map to that. So when we go to design here, we can see that we're on 1, 2. So let's go ahead and move on over to this, change this to 2, and save. Turn off map. We could have also just changed this right here and go to unused, and this is where you can set it to 1, 1. And you can have multiple CCs spread over many different controls if you'd like. But we're going to work with 1, 2. So yeah, so now this is going to work as is. So this knob is sending, 127 is going to be our high pass. That's going to be our low. I assure you it works. And this is our band pass. But this is kind of funky because this is 0 to 127, and that doesn't really make sense. We only have 3 options. So let's adjust that. So we go to design mode and double tap. We can change our display min and max. And rather than 0 to 127, we could set this 1 through 3. You can set it all the way up to like 999, I think. So you can have quite the display, even if it's not sending all those messages. It only sends 0 to 127, but you can display it however you like. So 1 through 3 will work for our example. It could be -1, 0 to 1. You could do stuff like that. So, this is now 1, 2, and 3, but it's still kind of like a slider. So that's not right. We want it to snap to these various functions. So that's where number of ticks right next door comes in. And rather than 128 ticks, we're going to have 3. And now exit design, 1, 2, and 3. So that's our low, our high, and our band pass and our high. So very cool stuff. So when we go to design mode, we can remove the knob to label entirely. And when we go to advanced, we can use named ticks down here. And this is where we can manually name these if we'd like. So we'll click on the 3 ticks there. And let's just add in LP right here for this little label. BP. And high pass there. So now we can see that these are labeled properly for us and sending to the corresponding values there. So sometimes when you say you wanted like 15 different steps and this was like your filter, whatever you're trying to control. But sometimes when you use name ticks, they don't correspond to exactly what you're looking for. One example I can think of is inside of Crystalline, you have like the mix mode, and it's or delay mode, something like that, and it's 1 through 16, and it doesn't line up perfectly. So when we go into design mode, all of our ticks are named here. You can adjust which CC it sends out on. So say we wanted 2 to be our low pass as well. We can make it 0 there. Or let's just make it 1. And then we can see that when we are on 2 here, it still moves to our low pass. So say we had set that up and it just didn't happen automatically for us where it was finding band pass in the middle there. You can experiment, sometimes it's a little trial and error, but you can go in, check your name ticks here, and adjust the mapping on it the number that it sends. And we know that 64 is going to work for us, so if we send it back there, that's how we can get back to the proper step, set it to our bandpass there. So really, really kind of cool stuff. It's it does take some trial and error sometimes if you're trying to set up a lot of steps and make it correspond to exact functions, but that's how you would do that. So we also, have our sliders here. These work just the same as knobs. They're all sending in the same types of messages. But then we also have an XY pad. So inside of our XY pad here, we can go to properties, and we can see that we're on our X control property, which is the horizontal. You can go to Y dimension here, and that is how we can change the parameters for Y. So say we want a label of like frequency for Y, go to design, X design there, and label this for our resonance or something. And now you can see the labels there. So you can see why, or how to change through X and Y there. And same thing with our MIDI function next to the properties there. So we're on X control, our resonance, and that's set to 1.5. So actually, even though I've labeled these frequency and resonance, let's map these to our timbres here. So when we move this around, we want that to be our XY pad on the other screen there. So let's go to setup, map CCs, and back to the XY there. And we can see this is at 5 and 6. So you can double tap your X origin, and map that to whatever you like. Let's make sure we turn off map CCs. And these are already mapped accordingly. So I have my X control is 5, my Y control there is 6. So these are mislabeled right now as frequency and resolution, or resonance. But we can see that when we move this, our XY grid over here, it corresponds. So now this guy is up here. Move that all the way down to this corner. And just like that. So, when we're in our setup screen and our mapping, it's really as easy as setting a number here and saving it. And then when we go to MIDI Designer, just assigning it the CC control to whatever knob or slider we want it to. So just like that, we can, make 20 different buttons and set up all of our CCs just like that. And once we're inside a MIDI Designer, lay that out however we find, useful to us. So it's really as simple as that to kind of get some of your main functions going on. I've kind of gone ahead and created a little template that we're going to use. So we go to config and actions. We can load a layout, save this current layout, mail this to ourselves, and we can open it up in Dropbox and share it with people. We could delete here, new, but we want to load a layout. So we're going to go to demo, which is what I've just created here. And these are some of all the other layouts I've made. I've made an EchoPad one, Filtertron, all these other ones. And I'm happy to share those too. So we'll kind of cover that in a bit. But in any case, let's go to load demo, and it asks if we want to append this to our current layout. What that means is, do we want to keep these controls and add new banks of this layout, or do we want to just wipe this slate entirely clean and get rid of these controls and just load whatever we're trying to? So we do want to keep these controls, so let's hit yes. So now we've added new banks here on 3 and 4. Whereas, on bank 1 here, we only had 2 banks before. So now we still have our controls on 1 and 2. And, I guess I never made anything over on 2. But this is what we were just looking at, and now we've added on 3 and 4 here. So this is our little template that I've created for Animoog for this demonstration. So these are all different button types here on the left. So when we go to more and design and create a new button, double tapping on it in our properties here, these are all of the subtypes. We have momentary, we have a toggle, a drum pad down here. Page up and down I skipped because bank up and down do the same things. Jump to bank, an accelerometer toggle, all sorts of stuff in here. So let's go through these one by one real quick. So momentary is a press and release kind of functionality to it. Toggle is a traditional like on off. Bank down is really cool here. So, you saw me kind of manually flipping through these banks. We can do this also by creating buttons. So we could do bank down here, and now we've gone down to bank 2. So when we go to design and add a button, we can go to subtype here and make this a bank up button. And now we'll pop right back over to 3. So we could do that across all of our pages. I could add a bank up button here and do that across all of our banks, everything, and always be able to jump to what we want. So like right now, this says bank 3. We're already on bank 3. So let's go to design. Our subtype is jump to bank. Let's go to bank 5. That's fine. Apply. And it asks us if we want to change the label helpfully. Yes, we do. And now we'll jump over to bank 5. And now I've already set this up to bank 1. So we just jumped back to bank 1, bank 5. Actually, I think this is set to bank 3 still. It's mislabeled. That's because when I loaded my layout, things got a little bit funky. But we can fix that. We can adjust it however we like. So bank 3, apply, change label. Let's do it. 3, 5, 3, 5. So it's just like easy as that, So you could add as many bank buttons as you want and be able to just fly through and do that all across your different banks, different pages. Page up and page down are the same thing as, jumping to these banks. So those are all the same. Send all. There's also send all this page, which just means this half, these tabs. But send all is, say inside of Animoog, we've, made a bunch of settings here, and we like what we got, but Animoog starts acting funky, so we want to restart it. So now when we've restarted Animoog, it defaults to the original sound. And that's kind of a bummer. So when we hit send all, this just sends all of these values over to Animoog and gets us back to where we were. So by creating a send all button, we can have the ability to restart what we were using and get back to where we were at. So we can also reset, and that resets all the values on your page, all the defaults. So like when we go to design here and double tap on our XY pad, under MIDI, we can see that everything has a default value. So we can set our default value to 0. And now when we hit reset, our X control is still at 64, but our Y default is 0. So you can change your default settings that way. So depending on what you're using, if you want things to be, like a knob to be turned all the way down, you could default it to 0. If you want the knob to be defaulted to 50%, 64 would work. And 127 for your max, and anywhere in between, So yeah, so these are all buttons here as well. I'm going to touch on OpenURL in a little later. But these are all buttons here as well, and these are all momentary buttons that are piano keys. So in our display options next to subtype, that's where we can make hexagonal buttons. That's what these little guys are. We can make them round if we wanted, or piano keys. And you can have a generic piano key, which is just a flat bar, or you can make them, correspond and actually look like the note, which are helpfully labeled here. So we'll apply that. I'm sorry, we don't want it to, we want a CF. This is a C note. So, why is this not sending? We'll go to config, check our connections. That looks good. That looks good too. I'm wondering why. Oh, I bet it's because of our bandpass and all that kind of stuff. So now that I've gone ahead and there we go. So now we can kind of hear our default settings a little bit more. Some, our frequency and our timbres are off. But that's because we've adjusted some settings already. So in any case, let's go back to bank 3 here. So you can see that we've created a piano keyboard here, just with momentary buttons. So in our design mode, when we go to our MIDI settings here, our message type needs to be changed from control, which is the default, to note on off. And that's where we can create this as a on, and it turns off, just like a momentary. And yeah, in that way. So let's say we wanted to redo this again. Let's go to a new page here. Whoops. Go to design and we'll move that over. And let's create a new button. We'll make it nice and long. And we'll go to our properties here and make the display a piano key. We'll make our MIDI a note on off. And we can see that it is now set to an A-1. So let's say we want this to be a G1. Those are the corresponding notes. So very low to very high. And now let's go to actions and make similar. And this is going to give each new button I create, its own MIDI channel corresponding, one at a time. So when I go to make similar for the second one, it's now a G sharp. This one is now an A. Otherwise, if I went to copy, it would be, a copy is just going to make another A key. So, let's create a couple more here. And now this is going to be a nice little chromatic piano keyboard. So we exit. And again, they defaulted to toggle, so these are just like permanently on right now. So when we go back to design mode, we can go to properties and change our subtype to momentary. And also we can turn on this green button, and now we can just flip through all of these rather than having to kind of exit out of this panel. And so now we have a little chromatic keyboard set very low. This is very bassy right now. But yeah, so it's just as easy as that. And now we could change our settings here to the piano keys to make them correspond to what we want them to be, and make a little keyboard that looks just like that. So that's how you can kind of create, a keyboard. And then we also have these functions where our knobs can become octave transposition and, just chromatic transposition here. So let's take a look at these knobs. So when we go back to, let's go back to our bank over here. Let's add a new knob. And this one, we will go to our subtype here. We'll make this an octave transpose since we're so bassy right now. So default to the 12 octaves, yes, let's do that. Now it's -6 to 6. So it gives us this little warning here that we have a super control with no sub controls. What the heck does that mean? So also a helpful little hint, by triple tapping on a button, it sets it to its default value there. So in any case, let's go back to design. And by changing our subtype to octave transpose, this has gone ahead and over in relationships made this a super control, whereas it wasn't before. So what's a super control? So a super control essentially is able to map itself in order to create different controls on the same screen here. So when we go to sub controls, this is where we set what we want it to adjust. So by dragging this button to whatever parameter we want to change, we can now adjust this, at will here. So I'm going to do these for all of them, and then we'll back out, exit design mode, and now this is changing our octaves for us. So really cool stuff here. So now when we actually double tap on this, we should see in our MIDI that the step transpose is -36. So that just means that it's moving our octaves. This is 3 octaves lower than it is actually assigned to. So I've actually mapped these all to this. I meant to do it over here, but whatever. So this button is the same thing. So these are all octaves. Now we have our transpose right here, and this just moves them, chromatically, one key at a time. You can see with MIDI Designer sometimes it's a little hard to get it, exactly where you want. When you move all the way back, the farther away after pressing and dragging, the easier it is to get exactly where you want. So like on this slider right here, it could be really hard to get to exactly like 75. Like, oh my god, I'm struggling. So that when I move it out and lower it, it's actually really easy then to do it. And you can see it even like follows your finger here with this little helpful guide. So yep, click on something and drag it out, and that's how you can get a nice finer control. So we'll triple tap, bring that back to 64. So now we can see how our octaves are working. I've got these mapped to my hex pads here too. So, really, really cool stuff there. Presets here. That is essentially just a knob with a subtype of its own. So design and presets. And this essentially, it asks if you want to make it a default of 12 presets, which is, just fine for what we're using here. So it's essentially just 12 named ticks like we've done. And now when we use this, the presets function it's a super control. So just like before, we go to relationships and our sub controls, and you can assign this to whatever you want. So I've assigned it to octaves and transposition. So now when we make adjustments to our octaves and transposition, it automatically saves over here as preset 1. So when I move this to preset 2, you can see it jumped already. So let's just make this whatever we want. And now we can flip it back and forth between... Sorry, I guess you do need to make sure that you set that manually. So 2, 1, 1 is just transposed 3 steps up, our octave there. So you can move through your presets that way. And, there's also like a store and recall function. You could go online to find out a little bit more about that. I don't want to get into that right now, unfortunately, but it's just another way of adding presets and just another additional function to this. But in any case, that's how we can now move through these, at will. We can also add global presets, so we could make this, this whole page here, hit save, and save that to whatever preset we like. Make a few more adjustments, and then go to save and make that its own preset. So jump back and forth between the two there if you'd like. Really cool stuff here when you start using super controls to do what you like for you. So our drum pad here, I have it set to a note on and off. This is just a button, a drum pad subtype. In our MIDI, it's a note on, note off. So the one thing about drum pads, it's a little hard with our Animoog patch right now, but the higher up you are on it, the higher the velocity. So this is actually a lower velocity, and this is a higher one. It might make a little more difference when you're using a percussive type of sound. But yeah, so that's what a drum pad is. The other thing I wanted to show you too is the accelerometer here, and this is really cool. So when we go to more, we have we can turn on our accelerometer just like that. So alternatively, we can create a button with a subtype for accelerometer. And now when I press this, now it's turned on. So I've gone ahead and mapped my my XY pads already to this accelerometer, and I'll show you how to do that real quick too. So in design, when we double tap on our XY grid, go to advanced, and this is where we can set the accelerometer. So right now we are on our Y control, which is this way. So now we can set our accelerometer to control the Y axis when we turn it this way, and we can set our range. And I actually don't even know what upside down and upside up do, unfortunately. I've never really used that. Like I said, I've never even used some of these functions. But this middle one is our range. So this is how, the shorter it is, the less you need to tilt in order to get it to its full maximum. So if this was set to 1, it would take much more tilting of the iPad to get it to the full range there. So I hope that kind of makes sense here. Let me make sure my framing is good. So when we turn on our accelerometer, we can really play with our settings that way, and now it's controlling our filter. Really fun stuff there where, like I said, like you can't do that with Animoog. So that's the beauty of this app. One other thing I wanted to touch on is the extra CC and hold here. So in our XY grid, when we are in design mode, under relationships, we have extra CC and hold here. And I've set this to this toggle button. Now what I've done with this toggle button earlier is much like what we created here, where this is our filter on off, or low pass, high pass. In this one, I've done this for our drive. So this is turning our drive all the way on, and this is turning our drive all the way down. So now when I play that, it's actually maybe, this might not be mapped properly. Let's double check. Nope, it's not. So this is on 80. So I want to change that real quick. This is now mapped to 80. Turn that off. And now we can hear our drive is turned way on. It goes from 0 to all the way up. So now this extra CC and hold allows us to kind of play with our filter, or our frequency and our resonance, while adding drive to it every time that we touch it. So when we start to use our accelerometer with it too, we actually have to turn on the drive there. But you can really kind of have a hell of a lot of fun that way, So this the extra CC and hold, it's kind of like a chord chaos pad. So really cool stuff. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is channel change. So when we go to design and make a new knob, one of the subtypes it can be is a channel change. And I've already got it hooked up here, so I don't know why I created that. But in any case, our channel change button here is mapped, has a super control, just like before. And now our sub controls, I have it for our XY pad here. So when you drag to this, it automatically picks up both X and the Y axis, and also our extra CC and hold. So now, in our design mode, we've been on channel 1 this whole time. When we change our channel, now we're at 8. So go back to design, we can see that we're at 844. So that's really useful actually. So MIDI or Animoog rather is only on channel 1. So we could set this up, say, in like Magellan and control that filter. So if we wanted to just change the channel but keep the same CCs, you could use that to control another app, mapped the same kind of way. So it's actually really pretty cool to be able to change your channel like that. So I think I've actually touched on most everything that I do with this app. I kind of wanted to show you a quick look at a template I've just created. We'll go to Actions, Load Layout, and we'll do Holder, which is we'll add that to our current layout here. This is a template I've just created for all 4 of the Holderness media apps. So as you can see, they all have default values here. This delay mode is set to a stepper, 1 through 16, just like the delay mode in Crystalline. Our channels are set to 13, 14, 15, and 16. So kind of like what I was saying with our channel changer just a second ago. If we want to map this to, say, 5 and 6, CC, just like we have on our other banks here. this is where the page, the bank up and down buttons really come in handy here. But just like, this is mapped to 5 and 6, we could create a map right over here to 5 and 6. And this way when we change our channel changer, if this was set to 13, 5, and 6, we could move it up to 13 here. And be able to use this XY pad just by changing our channel changer here. So that's kind of why I wanted to touch on that. But, this is a template that I'm going to be giving away on the soundtestroom.com. I actually have a bunch of templates that I've already shared on MIDI Designer's website, but I'm going to add all this to ours as well. This has been a very long tutorial. I hope I kind of covered, the same kind of things that you're going to want to do in order to use this template and create something just like it. So, if you have any questions or anything, MIDI is a very scary, confusing world the first time that you dive into it. But MIDI Designer I find to be incredibly intuitive. Some of the competitors, such as Lemur, I find to be a little harder on a newbie. I myself am just constantly learning about MIDI all the time. So I find this to be a very easy to use app. Particularly with just some really cool functions like this accelerometer. I think that's just really, really fun. The extra CC and hold, creating your own little keyboard layouts, all sorts of really cool features that you can kind of have a lot of fun. And I never showed you my little pitch bender here. So slider, you can have a subtype, or I'm sorry, it's under MIDI control message types, but you can have a pitch bend. So really cool stuff there. I love that. So in any case, just so much fun that you can have with this. But yep, check us out on the soundtestroom.com. I'm going to be sharing all of these templates, hopefully with the release of this video. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, get a hold of me. Otherwise, MIDI Designer has tons of documentation on their own website. If you're just confused about anything, look up the terminology on Google and MIDI Designer, and there'll probably be an explanation for it. But yeah, I hope you found this useful and that you start creating some templates of your own. I'm really, I just have a lot of fun making these. So I'm going to be giving this out. This is mapped to 13, 14, 15, and 16. It's actually alphabetical when the banks are correct. C, 1, 2, 3, 4. But in any case, yeah, check us out at soundtestroom.com. Thanks as always for watching, guys. I know this was really long, but I hope it was very comprehensive as well. I love you all for watching. I seriously can't thank you enough. I got nothing on Doug, and it means a lot to me that you guys are watching my videos too. So, all right, everybody, take care. Alrighty, hey guys, welcome to the Soundtest Room US addendum here. I cannot believe I forgot to show you the open URL function. So when we open up MIDI Designer here, let's go to More and Design, and we'll create a button. And with this button, it defaults to toggle. We can go to our subtype here, and Open URL is one of our options. So now when we go there, right next door here is where we can type in a custom URL to launch whenever we press it. So we could set this up to basically anything that you want, any website. We'll apply that, and now we're going to open up the Soundtest Room right from MIDI Designer. Pretty cool, huh? It's not necessarily something that you'd want to use with Soundtest Room or Facebook. You're probably not going to want to launch that from MIDI Designer here. But what you can do is use this with Audio Bus, and that's where it really comes in handy. So let's open up Audio Bus here, and I got a preset going on. I've done this a few times now through the course of the night. So it's listed several times. But we have this little export guy here. We can copy this, and this preset is now a URL. So we'll close Audio Bus, head on back over to our design mode in MIDI Designer, and for this open URL we'll go to Custom and paste in what we just copied from Audio Bus. So it has a little description ahead of it. You're going to want to delete that just everything before the HTTP there, hit OK, and now we have that preset, that Animoog into Caramel. So now when we launch that, it takes us to Safari, and we can open up this preset. Even though we just shut down Audio Bus, it's going to open that up right as we like it. Now we just tap on these to launch, and we're good to go. So right from MIDI Designer, you can open up Audio Bus. If this was your Animoog template, over here, and you had a Caramel template over here, you could add a button that would open that up and be able to use both those functions right away in Audio Bus without having to get those connections made yourself, So if you had multiple songs in a set, as long as you had Wi-Fi, if you had a hub or something that you could use live to carry around with you, you could, as long as you always have Wi-Fi, you could launch these URLs, right from MIDI Designer and create like a sampler into Loopy and have its own template for it. Create Animoog into Caramel and have its own template and its own button to launch that preset. So super handy function. I can't believe I forgot to tell you all about it. That's just one more thing about MIDI Designer. Dan is constantly thinking of awesome things to add to the app. Like I said before, there's features I've never even used, so to have those plus new things added all the time, this is the app that just keeps on giving, and I can't express that enough. Really, really a whole lot of fun here to be had with it. So I definitely wanted to show you the open URL function. So thank you as always for watching. We'll catch you again next time, everybody. All right, take it easy.